Hello? No, I haven't seen anyone leaving. Male, black hair, brown eyes, 5'9", probably in a hospital gown. I got it. I'll pass it along to Carl, thanks. Hey, what room did you say they were in? 301, of course. I got you. I hung up and rubbed the bridge of my nose. That was the third patient this year that had disappeared out of room 301, and it was only June. Well, that wasn't quite true, I reminded myself, as I dialed Carl and passed along the description. This was the 50th person who had disappeared from that room in the history of Cashmere Medical Center. That may not seem like a lot, considering how old the hospital is, but when you consider that it's from a single room, then you have to put it together that something is a little off. Room 301 on 3 North, yeah, that 3 North, has been disappearing patients for as long as anyone can remember. 3 North was the first wing on that floor, so it's the oldest and the most storied. Voices, specters, disappearances, and strange happenings are pretty common up there, and this is just another piece of the weird pie. It's a piece that draws the police in every now and again, because the people who go missing don't always come back. There are dozens of missing persons cases that start with subject was seen by a nurse in room 301 of Cashmere Medical, and the PR for the hospital is not great. I've talked to some of the nurses about it, especially my expert on Cashmere lore, Nurse Robinson. 301? Of course I've heard of it. I filed more police calls from that room than any other nurse I know. That's great, I blurted, walking it back a little as I saw the look on her face. I mean, not great, but great. You have the information and know what I'm talking about. She smirked. Relax, kid. I know what you meant. So, any idea who the first person to disappear was? No clue. I wasn't here when the place opened. Heck, I wasn't even born when the place opened. I don't think anyone kept records of it back then. Sometimes people just up and leave, you know. Not everyone who disappears around here is from nefarious or supernatural means. Some people just skip out on the bill, medicate and dash, and they probably make up more than a few of the people that have left room 301. It's the ones that couldn't have done it that get me. I remember one of the first patients to disappear on my watch was a little old man with one leg. He had a prosthetic, but I doubt very strongly that he could have left without a lot of help. Why do you think so? I asked, taking notes. The one leg he had was riddled with gangrene, and if he hadn't had it removed, he would have died in short order of blood poisoning. There was the woman on oxygen who left her tank behind, and the lady with 4 kids who never went to sleep before telling each of them good night. There have been some regular folk in there, of course, but some of the ones who go missing just don't make much sense to me. I was still thinking about it as I came downstairs, and I nearly ran into a familiar figure as he walked out of the stairwell. The red-clad orderly had become a little less secretive after the business with Carl, but I think maybe Carl and I were still the only ones who really noticed him. He smiled when he saw me, dipping his bald head and holding the door for me. Well, 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 if it isn't my young friend. Going down? Yeah, I was heading back to relieve Carl, I said, something occurring to me before I could walk fully into the stairwell. Say, you've been coming here for a long, long time, right? The orderly nodded slowly. I suppose it seems long to you. To me, it just seems like another day. Right, but what I mean is that you've been here since before the hospital. Correct. Do you know anything about 301 on the 3rd? But I never got to finish. He sucked in a breath like someone had plunged him into ice water and shuddered all over. That room is not natural. I do not go there. The souls in that room are not for me. That took me aback a little. What do you mean? Aren't all the souls within your domain? It was hard to see unless you had spent some time around him, but the orderly actually appeared paler. That room is outside my jurisdiction. Some people are not of the world that we inhabit, but are worlds controlled by others. That room is one of those rooms. So, who does it belong to? He looked at his watch and told me to walk with him. I'll try to explain it all, but I doubt it will all be conveyed. Do you remember the girl you helped pass on? Yeah, the one with the bright future. Well, there was a girl like that in that room a very long time ago. A girl who felt she had all the time in the world. She was in there for something minor, an appendix that was bothering her, but when she went to sleep one night, she discovered it was far worse than she thought. She woke up to find me waiting for her, telling her it was time to go. She wanted to know where, and when I told her it was her time to go, she said no. We talked about it, but she just kept refusing. Eventually, I left, assuming she would move on by herself, but she did not. That room has become her Desmay, and she guards it jealously. Her what? I asked, not recognizing the word. Her Desmay. It's a pocket world that ghosts make sometimes. Room 301 is hers, and sometimes she takes people from it. It's not her fault. She's a very lonely little girl, and she likes to have company. She doesn't realize that the people there are being devoured, so she can continue to exist in that space. She is greedy, she is sad, and she is eternal. He stopped outside room 317, telling me that this was where he had to leave. The code blue came overhead as I reached the stairs. It looked like the orderly had led another person to the hereafter. I told Carl about it when I went to relieve him so he could get back to work, and he nodded solemnly. I'd figured it was probably something like that. It's always some damn thing around here. You know, I get more calls about that room than anything else here. Don't suppose I can tell them it's a ghost kid, can I? I shook my head. Probably not. Sure would make it easier. They're starting to get suspicious of all the disappearances. It's normal for people to run out on their bill from time to time, but when it's the same room again and again, they start to put the pieces together and decide the hospital has something to hide. It keeps happening. It could lose us our accreditation, and that'd be real bad. He left not long after, needing to speak with the coroner and add his name to the death paperwork, and I settled in to ponder. Michael came in a little later, looking to kill a half an hour on break, and I asked him what he knew about 301. I know there's some weird calls that come from it sometimes. I asked what he meant, and he took a seat in one of my swivel chairs. Well, one night I got a call from a little girl in the middle of the night. She sounded like she might be about 9 or 10, and she was pretty bossy. She told me I needed to come to her tea party because she was missing a fourth, and none of the people there were any fun. I figured it was someone's kid playing games, and when I called the nurse's station, they assured me that there was no one in there. The room was empty at the time, and they said the door was locked because of it. She called back an hour later, asking why I wasn't at the tea party, and when I told her I was working, she hung up on me. Has she ever called back? Few times, usually to invite me to a tea party, but it's always weeks apart. Weirder than that, I got a call from a woman asking for help a few years ago. It was right after the lady with the kids went missing, Susan something or another, and she said this little girl was keeping her from leaving. I asked her how the little girl was stopping her, and she said that the little girl had made the doorway disappear, and every time she tried to escape, it would lead to nothing but a lot of running. Then I heard a little girl ask who she was talking to, and the line went dead. Weird, I said, but Michael shook his head. Nah, weird was what happened a couple of weeks ago. I was working late, and around 11:30, I got a call from the third floor. I figured it was from 309. The lady in there was having trouble getting her husband, but instead, I was treated to a low noise coming from the receiver. It was weird, like a kind of growling that rose and fell the longer I listened to it. I turned the volume up as high as it would go, and that's when I heard it. Screaming. The tortured screams of a whole bunch of people. It was like that recording of The Hole in Russia, the one they claim goes straight to hell, except it was like they got softer and louder the longer I listened to them. Finally, I just hung up after a while, but it was hard to shake. I hear it sometimes in my dreams, and I don't like it. He left not long after, saying he thought he might go take in the memorial garden instead, and I felt a little sorry I had asked. Despite this, I asked Gerald the same question when he came to take out the garbage in the lobby. Gerald was coming up in the world these days, working the lobby instead of changing out the rooms, and he seemed happy to be away from the third floor. He sobered a bit when I asked him, some of the smile creeping out of him, and told me that he wouldn't go into that room for anything. The third floor is very haunted, but that room is cursed. Cursed? Yes, people disappear from there all the time, and not just patients like they want you to believe. We've lost 5 members of the custodial team in the time I've been there, but they always get chalked up to job deserters or poor work ethics. I have a suspicion that might have been the room that Maria disappeared from, and it's been getting hungry lately. What do you mean? I asked, feeling a chill run down my spine at the words. The hospital may not notice all of them, but I have changed enough rooms to know who is skipping out and who is disappearing. It's getting more frequent, and if it's allowed to continue, then it will soon become noticeable to even the normal people who aren't surrounded by it every day. He left then, and I was left with more to ponder. So that's how I came to be outside room 301, just as the sun came up one morning, pondering whether I actually wanted to go in and investigate or not. I had taken a step towards the door when someone put a hand on my shoulder, and I turned around to find the orderly behind me. Not yet. Someday maybe, but not today. From everything I'm hearing, it's getting worse. Something has to be done, I told him, feeling that this was true. And one day, you may do something, but not today. If you go in there now, you will never come out again. I promise you that. Grow in your power. Learn all that you can. Make some friends who can help you. And then try this one. I believe you would have an easier time with that harpy in the operating room than this one. And she is very angry. Not today. Save this one for another time. So I left again, deciding he would be the authority in this situation. After all, it wasn't as if the ghost was going anywhere. Good evening, everyone. It's me, Dr. Plague. I'm glad you made it to the end of the story. Thanks for stopping by. If you think you might like a little more spooky in your life, well, there should be some links popping up at the end of this to other great stories, maybe even some great playlists that you can discover. We update 7 nights a week, so there's always something new and something spooky waiting for you on the channel. If you like your spooky a little more tactile, there should be some links to Amazon down in my description, so go have a look over there. It should get you to all my latest books. Speaking of books, I've got my first horror novel, Towsy Homestead, available for purchase on Amazon. It's my first horror novel, so I'd really appreciate it if you'd go give it a look and maybe give it a buy too. If you'd like to support the channel, we have a subscription program here on YouTube, but we've also got a Patreon with lots of tiers and lots of different rewards. For example, our Spooky Skeleton contributors get their spooky 12 hours early. That's right, they get their videos at 8:30 a.m. as opposed to 8:30 p.m. Ghostly Reader tier contributors, that's a tier that's only available on Patreon, I'm afraid, get a book anytime I write one, signed and on their doorstep, hopefully in a timely manner. So, however you support the channel, whether it's monetarily or by enjoying our great videos here, thank you so much. Speaking of patrons, before we go, let's go ahead and thank them. Thanks to Sara, Unicorn Hollow, JustAmy, and Cinnamon Fox for being our spooky ghost contributors. Thanks to Shannon McGhee, Janet, Lee Kendall, Ronda J, Sue Casper, Valinar, CleoHarperReturns, Sara, and Queen Sheebah for being our spooky skeleton contributors. And thanks to Oh Snap, Winter, Xaronan, Stephanie Carrington, Tyler Parker, Grim Reaper, TomBoiTopUwU, Queen Sheebah, MissNewBooty, and Alex Connor for being our Ghostly Reader tier contributors. Thanks, everyone. We just couldn't do the show without you. And as always, thanks for stopping by. Dr. Plague, signing off. Have a wonderful evening.